So hello, everyone, and welcome to this month's Tenant Talk Live. I thank you again for joining us. And today we're going to be talking about emergency rental assistance, prospects, challenges, and opportunities. My name is Sid Betancourt. My pronouns are she, hers, and I'm a housing advocacy organizer with the coalition. And just a reminder, as you might have noticed, this session is going to be recorded and it's going to be uploaded to our YouTube channel later this week. A few reminders: if you have any questions, please feel free to use the Q&A feature, which you can find at the bottom of your screen next to the Q&A feature. And please feel free to use the chat as well to share your thoughts. And I will be sending a follow-up email later on this week with a lot of the information that you'll see here today, including links, the chat itself, a recording of the webinar, and other resources as well. And we'd also love to invite some folks from the audience to participate during the call. We just ask that you all stay on today's theme and make sure to take a step back if you've participated a lot, or if you haven't participated a lot, to take a step forward and share some of your thoughts. So before I introduce our panelists for the evening, I do want to begin with providing some NLIHC updates. And if you've been in any of our calls recently, they might be a little bit redundant, so please bear with me, but I'll try to get through them as quickly as I can. So firstly, I just want to make sure that you're all aware of the most recent issue of Tenant Talk. For those of you who may not know, Tenant Talk is a semi-annual newsletter created by NLIHC alongside tenants such as yourself to kind of engage in housing advocacy. And the winter issue came out about a week and a half ago. And in that issue, you'll be able to kind of read from our partners across the country on efforts to increase access to ERA. But you'll also, per tradition, see articles that include tenant perspectives that will dive a little bit deeper into the tenant's experience. And we actually have somebody today who wrote one of those pieces for that publication today that will be sharing their story. But the publication will also be including updates that you'll usually see in Tenant Talk, such as policy updates, research updates. We've also included racial equity updates this time. So really awesome publication, came out beautiful. Thanks to our comms team and thanks to all the partners that contributed to that. You can access the digital version of Tenant Talk at the link that Courtney just put in the chat. So that's just an update on Tenant Talk, and then I'll briefly go over kind of our policy updates. There's three big things that you should kind of be thinking about right now in your advocacy. The first one is kind of how Build Back Better has kind of developed, and a lot of the things that the president had said at the State of the Union last week. He kind of described like the path forward. And we've seen a big shift in the way that he's talking about his policy priorities in general, but in housing especially, just to kind of address the issue of inflation, because that was a big concern for Senator Joe Manchin. So he didn't really mention Build Back Better in his State of the Union or reconciliation, but he did mention a lot of the priorities that were previously in that bill. And so we're pleased to hear him talk about the housing investments in general, but you know, there is a possibility of seeing like a scaled back version of the Build Back Better Act, and a lot of folks that we usually work with would be in support of that bill. And, you know, there will be, if that framework from Manchin kind of moves forward, we'll probably see competition with other policy priorities that have been really big in the past year, such as climate change, the child tax credit, and other things like that. So it's really important right now that we keep on that pressure and make sure that our members of Congress know that the House priorities that we have in our House campaign are included in any type of legislative framework that goes forward. So those things include increased access to rental assistance, the preservation of public housing, and the National Housing Trust Fund. And we did, our policy team just released like a new version of our fact sheet that kind of explains how these different legislative priorities are going to address inflation. So Courtney, if you can drop that, thank you so much in the chat. And then we also have appropriations. So we're expecting to hear more about the top line numbers for the fiscal year of 2022, and as soon as tomorrow, in fact, but they're still kind of working out the kinks between some of the additional COVID relief, but also some of the Ukraine relief. And they're working really hard to make sure that this is passed by Friday, because there's a continuing resolution, also known as a CR, that's going to expire by the end of this week. So there might be a possibility that it won't pass in time, and there might be another continuing resolution that'll need to be passed, but we're hoping that won't be the case. The original appropriations bill that the House approved had an expansion of vouchers, and we're kind of hoping that, if you all can make that last minute advocacy push to make sure that this expansion of vouchers is included in the FY 2022 budget. And then lastly, I just want to briefly go over the Evictions Crisis Act, which was introduced by a bipartisan group of senators. The number for that is going to be S2812, I believe, and it was originally introduced in 2019, but we're really excited for this bill and its updates that it has, because it's kind of working towards creating a permanent emergency rental assistance program, and we're talking about that today, so that's kind of why it would be relevant to us, but it is a really exciting update. So it would also include changes to the ERAP, or the emergency rental assistance program, such as self-attestation and direct-to-tenant assistance, which basically means that you yourself are able to prove that you need this assistance, but it also gives the program permission to directly provide you with your emergency rental assistance. So we will be sharing a fact sheet about that in the chat, and as always, if your senators are especially Republican senators, we're hoping to get more of those co-sponsors onto that bill. So if you can just reach out to them and ask them about that. And then lastly, I promise, if you have any questions about policy related things, please feel free to email Sarah or Kim Johnson on our policy team. But I'm going to move on to just some quick ERA updates. You may have heard some of these on the national call earlier today, but not last Thursday, but the Thursday before that, the Department of Treasury released an updated emergency rental assistance spending data through the end of last year. And they also released demographic data for the first year of emergency rental assistance. And what they found is that in between January of 2021 and December of 2021, 18.5 billion from both ERA appropriations was given to 3.2 million renter households. And in December, grantees dispersed 1.1 billion in the first round of ERA, which brings the total of ERA one spent or obligated to 17.6 billion. So this is about 70% of the available ERA one, or the first appropriations of funds available. And then for the second appropriations of ERA, you have 1.3 billion, which comes out to be about the total spent or obligated to 5.8 billion, and then 27% of that. Hold on, let me let me go back and say that again, because I feel like that might be confusing to some people. But the grantees dispersed 1.3 billion of ERA2 funds in December, and in total that brings to the whole amount that they spent in the last year to 5.8 billion, or 27% of the available ERA2 funds. And so the demographic data that they released also shows that they reached a high proportion of households of color. So around 41% of households that received ERA1 funds identified as Black, and 19% of households that received ERA1 funds identified as Hispanic. And similarly, 46% of households that received ERA2 funds identified as Black, and 23% of households identified as Hispanic. So that is just a brief update. And you can also email one of our research analysts, Sophie, to ask more questions about that. We do have some resources that we can share. And I know that Courtney has been working hard in the chat, and we'll also be sending a lot of these resources out afterwards. So no need to copy them now if you can't catch them in time. But with that, if you have any questions, again, feel free to email the appropriate parties, but I'll go ahead and move forward and introduce our panelists. So Today we'll be joined by Dr. Tolulope Ola, who is the founder and executive director of Restorations for All Incorporated. We'll also be joined by Foluke Akanni from the Housing Action Illinois, and she's a housing policy organizer there. And we'll also be joined by Rebekah Love, who is a tenant who has applied for ERA previously, so she'll be sharing her story from a Kentucky perspective. And I'll let them all kind of tell their stories a little bit more, but why don't we start with you, Dr. Ola? And I'll go ahead and pull your PowerPoint up as well, so I have that ready for you.
Thank you very much, Sid. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for attending this month's Tenant Talk Live. We will be sharing with you some of the opportunities that we saw on the field while we were working with a county called Dakota County to really get this emergency rental assistance to people in the BIPOC community. So first, I'm going to talk about our organization very briefly because I know you can always check our website. Also, I'll tell you our mission, how it aligned with what we actually did in this project. Also, I'll tell you about the opportunities that we were able to key into to overcome the challenges that we noticed while we were working with Dakota County on this project. So I will talk about the partnerships, what we learned. We learned a lot, but I will be sharing a few. And when it's time to ask questions, please feel free to ask questions. If I don't have answers, I will come back with answers for you. So the organization is an organization that started just because we wanted to be able to respond to the needs of the people in the community. That has to do with reconnecting them with opportunities, reconnecting them that with, things that can actually help them socioculturally to be well and also to improve their economic well-being. So we do that a lot to make our communities more resilient and also to discover our cultural heritage and values. And some of the values that, guide the work that we do. One is that of cultural awareness. That is really very key for us. When we talk about cultural awareness, we make sure we look at things that has to do with getting to know, to understand people in the community. And we believe that to understand others, we need to understand ourselves first. So understanding the needs of the people in the community, sometimes we need to walk in their shoes to really know what it is. We need to listen to them to know what it is that is even proving to be a challenge. So these are some of the things that, that some of the values that guide the work that we do. We talk about cultural well-being. It's all about the vitality that communities and individuals enjoy through participation in different activities, not even thinking about any consequences, but really looking at what ensures the cultural well-being of the community. And lastly, I'll talk about cultural connections. What is that about? Cultural connections is what we talk about when we look at people in the community coming together to do things together, reconnecting with their cultural heritage and also doing more. And with this project, we know the prospect that we're in this emergency rental assistance, even before the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. Low-income renters, especially, they struggle a lot with housing affordability. It's a big issue for them. And COVID exacerbated this affordable housing crisis. And, that predated the pandemic, and it has a lot of disparities. It became very glaring that there was a lot of disparities that threatened the strength of the economic recovery that, we thought was going to work for everyone. And just because of that, the emergency rental assistance was created. Very good, vision that they had. They had a very good prospect to really work with everybody. But what were some of the things that proved to be barriers? What were the things that were very challenging for some communities? For example, I talk a lot about the BIPOC community. We know before the COVID-19 pandemic, housing is a problem for low-income renters, and we have a lot of people from the BIPOC community having problems with this. But in that situation, what were some of the challenges? One of the major challenges was that some of these things that could really get people to be aware of this project or this program, it was not there. Culturally and linguistically appropriate resources and services. You know, sometimes people know about things, but they don't, it's affordable, it's accessible, it is available. But when people are not accessing, we really need to look at other factors. So the opportunities that we had, one was that we had the opportunity to work with Dakota County to really prevent eviction in the BIPOC community. The three goals that I have here was what we worked on. It, you know, it was not rigid, it was flexible, so we were able to accommodate more things into this. So the first one is to prevent evictions in Dakota County. The second one is to contribute to the efforts to ensure that BIPOC individuals and families in Dakota County are engaged so that they have accurate and up-to-date information. Half information is no information. So, and you know, when people have this information and they are not able to put it to use, it's not useful. So that was one of the things that we assisted to do. We contributed to the efforts to do that. And lastly, we coordinated with other contracted agencies, partners, rental properties, and county staff to plan and implement strategies and activities. This was not a one-time thing. It was ongoing. I want to talk about the flexibility of the county in this process. You know, they were very open to suggestions. Whenever we go there and say, okay, this is what we see on the field, they are very ready to do whatever we ask. They look at it legally, they look at it, whether it's something they can do, and they come back and say, this is what we can do. So the next slide, please, just to make it fast. So what were some of the things that we did that actually help us to reach and engage the community? We did door-to-door knocking. That really helped. In a way, when we did the door knocking, we made sure that we were always doing it weekends when people will not be at work, for those people that are not working weekends. And for those people that are working weekends, we go in the evening. So that if we don't meet them, we put the flyers underneath their door. They keep it somewhere. When they need us, they call and they ask questions. Also, we discovered that this was a time for us to be able to listen and observe. And, you know, that was the beginning of trust building for us. Also, we shared information through the diverse portfolio of digital and media channels that we have. And we also explored other connections. One is to have a 24/7 phone hotline where people can call and also leave messages, and we can call them back. Go to the next slide, please. Also, we did our community-based outreach. The first one was targeted outreach that we did. This other community-based outreach was about community conversation. You know, this was based on a mutual belief, a mutual trust, for us to be able to debunk the common myths and misconceptions around the benefits. You know, people talk about benefits a lot. We work with a lot of people that are undocumented. They don't want anything that will impact their pathway to getting their citizenship. And, you know, we brought in people from Housing League that were working with us to answer questions from the county, and they answered their questions. So if you go for this benefit, it's not going to affect your pathway. We were able to debunk a lot of myths and misconceptions. Also, there was this data-informed and targeted outreach that we did. For people that were with incomplete applications, we usually get the list, maybe Fridays, and then we called them. There was a particular case of a woman that we called. She was down with COVID in the hospital. And, you know, when we called, she was like, I can't get up from where I'm at, but I can always give you a number. She's my sister, and she will help you to log in into my account. And we were able to walk her through to complete the application. That was how effective that call was. You know, we were able to do that. We educated a lot of people about the eviction moratorium. We worked with another organization called 360 Communities, and that really helped. And lastly, I want to talk about the community events. The next slides. We were at different cultural community events, you know, in partnership with the county. one particular community event that we attended was the Somali Independence Day, July 1st, 2021. It was fun. We had a lot of people there, food, music, but you know, we had to go into the midst of the people, dance with them, so that we can talk to them about the emergency rental assistance. And in the process, a lot of people got their flyers. We even put some of the flyers on their cars before they left the venue of the event. These were the people we partnered with. Next slides, just to talk about the lessons that we learned. What were some of the things that we learned? We learned that, finding out the issues tenants were facing was really very helpful. Sometimes we don't have to preempt or guess that this is what must be happening. We have to listen, and each of these renters cases are unique to them. It's not always the same. So it's not, one size fits it all. So whenever we notice this or whenever we listen to them, we go back to the county and tell them, and they work on that. To the extent that there was a particular zip code that was asked not to provide proof of eligibility. So there was a waiver form for them to fill. And a lot of people from that zip code were able to access the emergency rental assistance. And lastly, just because we really want to do more, we are thinking that telling people that most of the programs that they do for people to get this benefit, it has to be culturally and linguistically appropriate, especially for people that are from the BIPOC communities. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ola. So I think really quickly, I'm just going to have one of the questions, just looking through the chat because I was sharing my screen really quickly, but Courtney, did you see any questions that came in that time?
Nothing specific for right now. Maybe some stuff we can get back to at the end, though.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you so much, Courtney. So with that, I'll invite Rebekah Love next to share her experience with BRA and provide some tips for you all.
Thanks, Sid. Gosh, my story is kind of long and a bit complicated, but I think it might help some people. So I'll tell you. So I grew up poor. I thought I had escaped that when I got a career in computer programming, and I was able to pay my own bills and whatever, but I never really had a comfortable balance. And I was also really just at one point tired of doing programming. I had a degree in fine arts, and I really wanted to do art, ceramics. I wanted to have a studio. I wanted to teach people, and I just wanted to do kind of what's my thing. So after about 20 years of calling myself a programmer, I had complete burnout suddenly, and that was when I kind of came to terms with the fact that I needed to really do something that's going to nourish me personally. So I quit my job and opened a ceramic studio in Louisville, Kentucky. That's where I live. And, it was less than 2 years old when COVID hit. So that really kind of was like the last straw. As a young company, it was tricky anyway, but after COVID, there was just no way that, because I could see that it wasn't going to kind of resolve quickly enough for me to not miss a beat. So I had to close my studio. It was a struggle, really just coming to terms with the fact that my heart was broken. My studio had to close, and now burnt out on computer programming, not sure what to do with myself. So I really tried to pivot and stuff, but my mental health just wasn't in a place where I could do that. And I just really had to kind of deal with that and come to terms with the pandemic that was happening before I could even begin to think about even packing up my studio and what to do with it. So I didn't have I lost my train of thought. So when I closed my studio and I was burnt out on computer programming, I just didn't know what to do at that point. I spent almost a good year just trying to make myself suitable for another computer programming job. And it was so hard. I just didn't want to do it anymore. My brain was not cooperating. Plus the trauma of the pandemic and everything just left me in a really poor place. So the ERA system really came, or ERA program for rental assistance really helped me a lot. I don't know what I would have done without that. And also the I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought again. Anyway, it was just a real struggle. Oh, the ERA funds. Unemployment really helped me for a long time, but after spending a long time trying to get myself back into employment, then it was really, I kind of realized that I wasn't just going to be able to slide back into programming that easy. And I was looking at really having trouble with my focus and learning and everything after the trauma of it all. So I filed for disability, and knowing that it could take quite a while before I am even awarded it, if I am awarded it, I didn't realize though that doing that would disqualify me for unemployment assistance, basically. So because I was agreeing that, that I needed help, then they, anyway, it was really painful. It really hurt to see how little there is, at least, I don't know, maybe the right thing is that there's so many gaps that you can fall into, so many holes that you can fall through. So now I'm starting to get upset, but I just want to, some of you in the audience, I'm sure, are in a situation kind of like mine. Maybe you don't know what to do. Thank you, everybody. But stick with it and ask for help, and people will help you. People are much kinder than we believe as a whole. And if anybody needs any pointers on what in the world you can do to help yourself to get back in housing or to avoid homelessness, basically just reach out as much as you can. And if I can help anybody, I would love to. So maybe I can give my contact information, but I think I better stop talking now.
No, you're doing great, Rebekah. Thank you so much for coming on here and for sharing your story. I know it's not an easy thing to come on here and just open up about your experience, especially with a program like ERA and all the different factors that kind of go into just applying, and like you said, the unemployment insurance, but also just the what do you call it, the lack of accessibility for some folks. So
yeah,
I really appreciate it. Please feel free to share your contact information in the chat as well. You have a lot of love coming in through the chat for you right now. So
thank you, everybody.
Got a whole community here for you. I don't see any questions, but I do see a lot of nice comments. Mrs. Brown, one of our board members, just saying thank you for sharing your story and courage. So glad that ERA has assisted in some way. We have you in our thoughts and prayers, blessings, lots of hugs and love, lots of thank yous.
Well, I just, now that I can breathe again, I just want to say, don't give up. There is help. it's not always easy to find, and you get a lot of wrong answers from people who don't know, or they're just not aware of everything else that's available in a community. So if one organization or person tells you no, then if one door closes, then find another door, because everybody deserves to have housing. Everybody.
100%.
That's all for
Irma
me.
Love also shares that they feel like they're in a similar situation. I'm sorry to hear that as well. I know it's hard. And I think John asked a question: how long were you attempting to get services for?
The ERA program was really easy where I'm at. They set up a quick website, stopmyeviction.org, for everybody in Kentucky, and they actually had it really well organized. So it was not hard to get the rental assistance from that program. Now, when I knew that I was going to be homeless or looking for a house, and I had no income, so I was going to be homeless, I started reaching out to the Coalition for the Homeless, and they couldn't help me. This is a local branch, I guess. They couldn't help me unless I was in a basically sleeping on the street. And then the housing, like the help finding more housing, you had to be in a shelter. So it's like I wasn't in bad enough a shape. I had to get in completely terrible shape before anybody could help me. So it just seemed really cruel that there was nothing there to prevent me from being homeless. But once I was homeless, they might talk to me then. So I've got a teenage daughter. She also has her dad lives nearby, and he's great. So thankfully she didn't have too much upheaval. But not everybody is in that situation. And to force a mom to take her kid homeless in order to get help, that's just cruel.
Yeah, 100%. So there's one question in here, just following up from John, if you want to answer it in the chat. Rebekah, just for the sake of time, John asks if you had to lose everything to gain the minimum, but I think you kind of answered that a little bit already.
Yeah, so luckily I didn't wait until I had no money in my bank before I reached out for help. I encourage everybody to do that. Reach out as soon as you see that there's going to be a problem. I now lost sorry, I'm too stressed out. I lost your question.
No, it's okay. You're doing great.
Did I answer it?
Yeah, you did. It was basically just like making sure, like John was just asking if you had to lose everything to gain the assistance that you needed.
Well, I had people help me a lot. It really took a lot of people helping me in all different areas to get, settled again and be living in an apartment now. So, but I had to pack everything up, put it in storage, and I didn't know how long it was going to be. It could be a year. And thankfully it was only a couple of months, but I feel like the only reason that I got rehoused so quickly is just through sheer persistence and maybe a seeing something that was available and trying extra hard to get the contact information because it was incorrect, just really digging in and not taking no for an answer, just believe that you're worth having a place to live.
We appreciate your bravery and your vulnerability for sharing your story with us today, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Rebekah. So I guess just shifting gears a little bit, I'll go ahead and invite our last speaker for today, Foluke Akanni from the Housing Action Illinois. They're one of our state partners, and I'll go ahead and let you take it away, Foluke.
Great, thanks, Sydney, and thanks, Rebekah, for sharing that story. I think everybody can kind of see how brave you are for sharing that story, but also how you can advocate for yourself, even when you know that there are resources, but you just have to advocate for yourself when it comes to being housed, which is again unfortunate. So like Sid saying, Foluke, Akanni with Housing Action Illinois, we are a statewide coalition partner. And I have two screens, so you're going to see my eyes kind of dashing back and forth because I have notes on my computer as well. But we are a statewide coalition. Our mission is to expand and protect affordable housing in the state of Illinois. So affordable housing that is also quality housing. We have over 150 members in our membership as a statewide coalition, and we do policy as part of that, and also we do work with our America. We do work with housing counseling agencies. In all of those efforts, our main goal is to end homelessness in the state of Illinois. So today I'm just going to talk to you about kind of what we've done when it comes to rental assistance program in the state of Illinois, and like doing our coordinated efforts when it comes to making sure that partner agencies and advocacy agencies and statewide agencies are working together to make sure that everybody kind of is the rental assistance program is visible for folks who need it, and also accessible for folks who need those rental assistance dollars. So we worked with our Housing Action Illinois, worked with our partners with Preservation Compact to coordinate a weekly meeting. This weekly meeting was done with the Illinois Department of Human Services, also our Housing Authority, Cook County, and the City of Chicago. And all these major agencies have some kind of ERA funding that they administer. Along with those agencies, also service providers and advocates joined the meeting as well in a coordinated effort to make sure that the ERA dollars were visible. So with these weekly meetings, we had updates from states and local agencies, also lifting up concerns that we heard in the community. So if we heard something about accessibility in the community when it comes to applications, which we did hear about, we will lift that up in those meetings and see, and also make recommendations. Sometimes they were accepted, sometimes they were not accepted. So we did our best to lift those organizations and also push to the best of our ability to make sure that some of those recommendations were implemented as well in those programs. So for example, with the Department of Human Services and with IDA, because of the different areas and geographical locations in Illinois, IDHS mostly targeted rural areas and communities, and folks who had technological barriers in those application process to targeted those communities in their ERA funds. When IDA, another state agency running the ERA funds, was more targeted folks more with had a targeted goal as well, but also made it more technological. It was more technically accessible for people. So we had IDHS who had the non-technical aspect for the application, and then also IDA who had a more technical aspect for the application as well when it comes to the administration of ERA funding. We also helped partner with different partners and communities to make sure that people were hearing about the program, and then hosting some webinars with state agencies so that folks, even also our partner agencies and members, knew about the program and shared those informations with the people that they served. And then we also advocated for a state law that required ERA funding to be used for households in impacted community areas, so that those households receive and were targeted to receive ERA funding to make sure that folks who had housing instability or homelessness were targeted towards those ERA funds as well. Overall, we had some successes and not successes, but overall, the program did work with either spending 100% of their ERA funding. But I know that as we work with, there's still more to work and more to do with the ERA program as well to make sure it's more accessible as funds are running out. And just one last thought, because I know time is running out, I'm just going to share Kim's story. So Kim is one of the she's part of a member coalition, and she lives in Southern Illinois, and she was diagnosed with cancer a few years ago. And because of our statewide effort, she was able to link up with one of our member organizations, which is in the Land of Lincoln Legal Aid, and worked with a caseworker named Sue. And Sue was able to actually help her with processing application, making sure that she was able to receive those funding for her to continue to stay housed. And so that's one of the stories I wanted to share, was that she was able to receive those funding or continue to stay housed until she actually had a disability funds released to her so she can pay our rental assistance dollars. Even though, I guess my last thought is, even though there's like, there is still, even though there have been challenges to the program, overall, it's, when I see kind of, when Kim was sharing that story, I can see that it has affected people and has helped some people at least to stay housed and still be and address housing instability as well.
Thank you so much, Foluke. So I did see one question come in the chat, and then I have some questions myself too, and a question that we had received during the registration that we can probably go through with everyone. But for you and specifically, we have a comment from Jacqueline saying that they applied in Chicago and was told that the mortgage company did not fill out the second half, even though it was sent to them. And do you know how they can receive help for this? They even sent an eviction notice, and like just knowing how much money they want as well.
I guess I need some clarity. Are you talking about the mortgage assistance dollars or?
Yeah, I think I would need some clarity on that too. I wasn't too sure. Let me see. Jacqueline, do you mind if I bring you here? Let me bring her on and see if she's willing to share. Jacqueline, if you want to go off mute, you can go ahead and do so now and ask your question. Oh, yeah.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all for being here with me. Yes, I received funds last year, and I was told to, and the reason why I applied again the second time is because they closed the payment portal up for me, so I couldn't pay. So I talked with Ida, and Ida told me to send the second half, because I had signed the first time for up to $25,000. Okay, and so I did, and and then I applied back in December. The cutoff time was January 9th, if you can recall. Mm-hmm. And then I waited and waited, and then February 4th is when this notice was sent that I have to go in and talk to someone at at the center regarding this eviction. And I've been paying my rent all of 2020, and I got funds, to help with 2021, and then all of a sudden this. So I don't know what's going on. And so it is like setting us back. And we're trying to call someone and talk to someone live. That's a big problem also. So I would definitely, any type of help, assistance that I can receive, or even if, talk. I actually listened to a housing counselor, but now they're doing it differently. They're not really having you talk to them live. And so I just don't know what to do right now. And then this, I have to talk to them in April 12th.
Okay, so I think the IDA program with that. Yeah, so I know they have been slow with distributing funds the second round. But what I can do is put my contact information in the chat, and we can reach out and have a conversation, because there are different places that you can reach out to kind of get a status of the application. And then also with the eviction notice, we can refer you to some of our partner agencies so that we take care of that.
Truly appreciate it. I truly appreciate it.
Okay.
I truly appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Jacqueline. I'll go ahead and put you back into the audience now, if that's
Okay,
okay.
thank you, Sid. And I hope
Thank you.
everything goes well with you too.
Yes, thank you so
God
much.
bless you both.
Thank you as well. Okay, so the next question that I saw come in comes from John. And I guess this can be a question from all three of our speakers. Now, if you want to go ahead and come onto the camera, John's asking, what is the renter's recourse in the matter of landlords not accepting the emergency funds? So I guess just kind of asking about like
Well,
what
it
would
happened to me. It happened to me on my second round of assistance. My landlord, my lease was coming up for renewal, and my landlord took that took that moment to decide not to accept any more rental assistance from anybody, and they started a new protocol that they would not renew leases from anybody who needed that rental assistance. So the local organization handling that around here still worked with me on it. I still got the check. I got it to me directly instead of my landlord. So considering that I wouldn't be able to live there anyway, it actually worked out better for me to get it directly, but it's much more of a hassle. Well, longer wait and whatever.
Thank you for sharing. And I know John just clarified saying if they don't accept like the ERA, but still move to evict, which I guess you kind of answered that part of the question too. I don't know, Foluke or Dr. Ola, if you wanted to address that question as well, but if not, we can move to the next one.
I would say in the state of Illinois, they like either does have a tenant-led application. So if landlords don't want to accept funding, there is a tenant-led application that the tenants can go through. But what we have been seeing is like Rebekah was saying, is that sometimes tenants, the landlord just refuses to renew leases. And that's the way kind of they go about that loophole. But there hasn't been any in some areas, in some counties who do their own county funding, there have been some times where they would take action, but like with those state agencies, there hasn't been any repercussions for folks who don't do that. But yeah.
And then just as a reminder to everybody else too, like what does IDA stand for?
I'm so sorry. It's the Illinois Housing Development Authority. So they're another state agency that does housing in the state.
Awesome. Thank you
I'm
so much.
doing acronym, so sorry about that.
No, it's okay. I've seen that acronym like a lot before, but I'm like, to people who probably aren't from Illinois, they might need to know a little bit more. But I see a couple of more questions coming in. So one of them came from Sunshine asking if the emergency rental assistance funding can assist with relocation to safer, healthier, and livable housing.
So depending, I know with the Illinois Department of Human Services, they did have in their ERAP funding some allocation towards moving expenses, but I think it's limited for some folks. But they did have some expenses that they were taking into account when it came to moving expenses.
And then we do have a question that came in through the Q&A. This is a question that I've heard before, but I can't remember the answer right now. But Anisha is asking if we know if there are any obligations to take a voucher or other federal funds if they are a Fannie Mae insured property.
So that's a good question. So right now there isn't like there's no source of income, a statewide source of income protection law in Illinois. And that's something that our coalition, Housing Action is part of a coalition that's actually working to pass the statewide source of income protection that gives tenants that protection when it comes to housing choice vouchers and any kind of non-wage income. So last year it did pass the House, and we're right now working right now to pass that bill in the Senate this legislative session. So that's something we're trying to work on, is to make sure that's a statewide protection. but there are protections in like Cook County and the city of Chicago for source of income.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Rebekah and Dr. Ola, I don't know if you had anything to add on that question. I know it's like super specific, so no worries if you don't have any feedback on that one.
I don't for that one.
No. Okay, so I see a lot of comments in the chat, and questions. Okay, so I know Leon Peace just asked, what is available to tenants where assistants are closed or shut down, like North Carolina? Leon, so I don't know if I can find it quickly enough to get it into the chat, but I know that I do have the link somewhere where our research team kind of put forth suggestions for places who are closing their programs because they're running out of funds. So I can share that in the follow-up email that goes out to you all. So I'll go ahead and make sure that you all get that, just so that you can see like what kind of advocacy you can do around that, because I know that a lot of folks are living in places where the programs are closing, and we want to make sure that you have like additional tenant protections in place to make sure that you don't lose your home. So I think somebody just asked if they have income protections in Chicago, and Foluke just answered saying that yes, they have a source of income protection in Chicago. Let me see if there's anything else that I missed. Just want to make sure that we have all our questions answered. And I know Lachelle Courtney answered your question about the ERA program closing in Toledo. Unfortunately, that's like one of those cases where they ran out of funds again. And why are the programs closing? It's just that the appropriations, or the amount of money that was given to like those programs, is starting to run out. There's like a lot of complicated things that kind of go into the back end as to how to get like additional money for your states, but there is like a process called reallocation, which again I can share like a resource on afterwards. But they're trying to do so that places that are starting to run out of money can get more money for their communities in need. So again, the act that I mentioned at the beginning of the call, the Eviction Crisis Act, is something that we're backing and trying to make sure that we authorize like ERA as like a long-term thing. So hopefully that'll be able to help a little bit. And I'm sorry if I didn't get to your questions, friends. I'm trying to make sure that I address every comment and stuff, but if there is anything that comes up and it wasn't addressed today, please feel free to email me or anybody else that was on this call as well, just to follow up with those questions. But I do want to, again, I want to thank Dr. Ola and Foluke and Rebekah for joining us for today's Tenant Talk Live, and for sharing your insights, and to all the participants who joined us today and provided thoughtful questions and insight. Really excited to see how this turns out when I view it afterwards. But just a reminder that if you have any questions, or if you want to provide like future suggestions, like for Tenant Talk Live or Tenant Talk the publication, you can also email those to me. And just to check out the most recent issue of Tenant Talk on emergency rental assistance. And also, if you're not part of our Facebook page, and you are on Facebook, please feel free to join our Facebook page. We'll drop a link to that shortly, but I'll include it in the follow-up email as well. But just make sure that you join that page so that you're able to kind of stay up to date with like what other folks are doing who join these calls as well, and kind of share some of your thoughts. But yeah, have a great night, everybody, and thank you for joining, and we'll see you. I believe it's going to be April 4th. Cool. Thank you so much, everybody.